Possible has been offered, and they are still not responding.
Let's get to that. What evidence is there that Mexican authorities are ignoring the warnings from U.S. intel agencies or their own intel agencies? How much information do they share? What should be done? I asked Paolo von Schirach. He's the president of the Global Policy Institute. Paolo, just yesterday, Senator Marco Rubio told us here at Newsy that Mexican leaders are ignoring intelligence, whether from Mexico or from the U.S., about trafficking, and that is a national security threat. Do we know how much Mexican leaders really know?
Well, that, of course, was probably classified. What we do know is that over the last 20, 25 years, in fact, probably even longer, there has been an increasing level of cooperation between the United States government and and various Mexican governments. The president, when Zedillo was president, when Calderon was president. Anyway, it actually has increased with a very sophisticated apparatus of sharing of information and law enforcement, intelligence, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and that also has resulted in practical facts like many extraditions of wanted criminals that the Mexicans, in a very cooperative fashion, have shipped back to the United States.
As you mentioned, Paolo, some of this might be classified, but we know that we have very close allies intelligence-wise with, UK and France, and we share a lot of information with each other. The directionality goes both ways. Is it as close with Mexico? I mean, because the level of corruption there and suspected corruption has been pretty great for a long time.
Indeed, yeah, and that has been always a concern on our side, on the U.S. side, that yes, we may want to engage, with our counterparts on the Mexican side, but then we don't know if some of them may be in the pockets of the traffickers, and that becomes counterproductive. Certainly, while we have these complex and highly sophisticated mechanisms for discussing all these issues at the highest level and multiple levels, really, with the Mexicans, I'm not sure that rises to the level of our intelligence cooperation, say, with the United Kingdom or Canada.
It is impossible to argue when you talk about 144,000 people coming over the border, you can't know everything about them. And that's the number that had been apprehended last month alone. And then you have this issue of SIAs, the special interest aliens, people who come from certain countries that the government keeps track of. Cato Institute talks about how over the last decade there have been 45,000+, and they don't only come from Central America. Pakistan, 928, Iran, 128, Yemen, 68. We know there are radical elements in those countries, and I think this is a national security interest, if not threat, that you need to know who's coming over the border.
Absolutely. And again, I am not sure. Obviously, Mexico, you would think, should share this responsibility, but it's not quite clear how serious they are, because if they know that these are people who are transiting through Mexico and their final destination is not Mexico, but the United States, it is really not a direct threat to them. But of course, if they wanted to truly cooperate with our own intelligence services, well, then they would say, hey, we want to flag this. This is going on. So I don't know how diligent and how thorough they can be in trying to track everybody, the regular folks who are the poor and the people who are trying just to find a better life in the United States, escaping from wherever they're coming from. But yes, these other elements do exist, and they are potential threats. We simply don't know.
Will Mexico enforce its rules and laws? Does it have sufficient motivation to do so? We don't know. And at this point, the standoff continues. And if this new deal between the U.S. and Mexico falls apart, or if it's not good enough for President Trump, he says he will impose 5% tariffs on every import from Mexico starting on Monday. It goes up every month until it hits